slavery in the US that aren't true at all. Number one, Irish people were enslaved. I've heard this a few times, and it's just not true. It's definitely true that 16th and 17th century Irish immigrants who came to America were exploited, were subjected to cheap labor through indentured servitude, certainly discriminated against. But there has never been a situation where Irish people in this country were subjected to perpetual and hereditary slavery based on their race. Didn't happen. Number two, the Civil War wasn't a war about slavery, it was a war about states' rights. This is not true. This was actually a bit of propaganda that was later perpetuated by people who wanted to paint Confederate soldiers as heroes who were fighting for Southern liberty and Southern states' rights. In actuality, slavery was a huge reason for the Civil War. It was really the key reason. If you read the Articles of Succession, you can see that slavery is mentioned no less than 21 times. Number three, only a small percentage of white families in the South actually owned people. This is not true at all. We know from an 1860 census that 32% of white families in the South actually owned enslaved people. And in states like Mississippi, that goes all the way up to 49%. I want you to think about that. In the state of Mississippi, half of white families in that state owned people. This was not some phenomenon that was reserved for very rich white people. This was, in some states, a majority of white people who owned slaves. Number four, the Union went to war to end slavery. When I hear people talk about the Civil War, oftentimes the South is painted as the aggressors and villains, and the North is painted as the heroes and good guys. And we have this thing where we tend to paint people like Abraham Lincoln as the heroes and the champions of black people. In reality, Abe Lincoln, yes, was personally opposed to slavery, but he's also on record saying that if he could preserve the Union and keep slavery, he absolutely would have. It was important to Abe Lincoln and important to the Union to preserve the Union. That was what they went to war for. It was not because they believed that slavery was wrong and wanted to end it.
Welcome to Tank Talks TV. Just doing a quick live. I just ran across this video. Shout out to Global Guest BJ. She put this together, and I really enjoyed this kind of breakdown of Black history and people coming to understanding of, like I said earlier, of who we are. So let's just run through and do a little reaction and see what's going on. Hit that like, hit the subscribe, and again, welcome into the room. Let's go.
Number five, black people served in the Confederate Army. I've heard this before and I want to set it straight. While it is true that maybe 1% of the Confederate Army had black people in it, it was a very small number because in truth, black people were actually prohibited from serving in the Confederate Army. And that was an order that came all the way down from Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederate Army. He very explicitly did not want black people serving, especially at an equal rank to white soldiers. Toward the end of the Civil War, when it became clear the South was going to lose, generals like Robert E. Lee started pleading and asking to enlist black slaves to just increase their manpower. But it was a tiny, tiny subset. And there is even documentation to suggest that these officers who took in black soldiers were punished. So very small number, and it wasn't like a ton of black people were fighting for the Confederate cause.
Step inside with Wyndham Rewards Insider. Unlock exclusive discounts on hotels and flights. Plus,
the more you know.
A lot of you guys know that I've decided that Ron DeSantis doesn't want me to know Black history, and so.
And yeah, again, when I seen this one, this what caught my attention with this part right here. I kind of his story kind of odd, but our Black history is very, very important. But they continue to whitewash and want to take away our history. And Florida has been one of those states that just definitely wants to do that. Let's go.
I've decided for the month of February to study Black history and really dig deep and learn this from the Black experience, and then make videos for you guys all month on the stuff that I learned. I want to make this video to preface these lessons that are going to be coming out starting today, actually. Now, my goal in attacking this project was not to master a bunch of facts and dates and stories and things like that, because my belief as I've studied history over the decades is that a historical event is not an isolated circumstance that happens, right? It's tied to dozens of other historical events behind it and dozens more that will come along its way. It's all woven together in this fabric that creates a story. And what I want to do is I want to understand the story of Black America. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I really want to sink myself deeply into the thoughts, the feelings, the frustrations, the triumphs, the struggles, and learn about real people in those stories.
I don't know, y'all, cause I don't know the way I understand he wants to help teach his people. Um, something ain't right about it. It come off very Jeffrey Dahmerish. Because clearly you're a little bit older and you're already in America. I'm pretty sure you already know a lot of history. So for you to be so intrigued now because it's popular or it's hot news, and the way that you're saying it, it's okay. Um, you know, um, we don't want you to dig. You one of those people. We're gonna let you go. We're gonna finish what he's saying, but we're gonna let him go. Let's go.
And how those relate to the overall Black experience, and then be able to pass on what I'm learning to whoever else is interested. So as I started, I was also very conscious of whitewashing, and I'm familiar with how that's happened. This is the practice, of course, of writing our history in a way that favors white people and glosses over the realities of the Black experience. And I was sure I was going to learn a lot of stuff from a new perspective. However, I want to tell you that in spite of this awareness that I'd find some examples, I have been shocked at what I have found. Firstly, it was extremely difficult to even find an authentic, honest version of Black history. I had to dig down rabbit hole after rabbit hole and find Black creators and Black writers and things like that would really tell me the real story, not the whitewash one. And it's been very difficult. That's really shown me like how that story has been oppressed. Secondly, the stuff that I found literally made me sick to my stomach. I would share it in the evenings when my girlfriend came home with her, and we would literally be almost in tears talking about some of this stuff. I knew that the South was very resentful at losing the war and the economic struggles that followed because they didn't have slaves, but I didn't really realize the full extent of how racism was exemplified across the entire country, including the North and the Midwest and everywhere else. Neither did I have any idea just how bad it was, and how from the very beginnings of our country, Black Americans, and up till this present moment, by the way, Black Americans have been struggling to survive and thrive in a pervasively hostile and racist country. So, studying our history, honestly, is an extremely difficult task, but we're called to that difficult task of realizing.
And yeah, that is all true. What he said, we still good on him, but our history is very, very, very important. I was born in Mississippi in the '80s, and I have a very long legacy line of, you know, just behind where we come from back then, all the way to now, civil rights, the whole nine, and it's in my blood. So of course I'm always gonna be very, very proud of it. But I do hate that, like you said, people do whitewash. They do. They very much do.
How our ancestors oppressed other people and created a society based on systemic racism that continues to oppress those people today. However, looking at this history, honestly, is literally the only way that we can move forward as a country and as individuals of that country. Our goal, of course, is to become more educated. It's to become more compassionate. It's to become better than our ancestors so that we don't relive their mistakes and their failures, right? So, I'm going to approach this stuff in a broad stroke manner, and I'm going to try to bring people into a deeper experience of what it must be like and how it is like to be Black in America. Now, this may seem like a strange project for a white man, and I understand that. How could I possibly know, much less teach, the Black experience?
Okay, let me pause right there. Okay, so for one, sir, you don't have to do that because actually that was already done by a white boy a long, long time ago. He took some pills or whatever he did to put melanin in his skin. He turned black. I don't know I think it was Geraldo. He went on TV and he told about his experience. He said he would never want to do that again in his entire life. He expressed how he had never felt how people looked at him, and how he was stared at and stuff like that. So that was already done. He got his clout, so you can just you don't have to go and get yours. Just go and look at for your cousins. Go look up Gerardo or Oprah, and they should be the history lesson you need.
The answer is I can't. I won't ever be able to know or feel what it is to be a Black American. That's just a simple fact. However, my goal as a human being is to learn about other people, right? And to put myself in their shoes as best as possible and really try to understand them. And I feel like this is necessary for all of us to do. But for me, it's the white male experience. It's necessary for me to go back and study this history and take accountability for how that history has affected me in my life today, right? Like some might call that white privilege, right? Okay. It would be much the same as if we look out and there's women writing about misogyny and feminism and things like that, right? But what a power when the very people who have oppressed those women are now coming out and taking accountability for that and writing about it. Now, I ask forgiveness in advance from any of my Black friends or my new Black friends that hopefully I will meet for my ignorance and for the continued mistakes I'm going to make along this journey. And I will ask a couple of things of both my Black friends and my white friends. As we engage in the comments in these videos, and some of these I'm sure are going to go viral just based on the past of some of my historical videos. But let's engage as a community of people. Let's be the leaders. Let's be the people who do this right. So white people, if you're like me and you're ignorant and you're like, I want to learn this stuff, then let's learn it together. But open yourselves up to asking questions. Don't feel like you're going to ask a dumb question or you're going to be attacked or this or that. And Black creators, please be patient with us, because the journey from ignorance to educated is a long journey. It's a long, arduous journey. And there's lots of pockets of continued ignorance along the way, right?
All right. We praise the Lord for you, brother. We're gonna have enough of that. But yeah, you can go and check that out. I'll put it in the description box. But I think there was a thing great that different sections about stuff like that. I don't agree with what the man's saying. I'm so sorry if you're white out there and you hear this later on. It's nothing personal. It's just us as Black people. We've been through so much. We have a pretty much like a sixth sense, and a seventh one. And it's like our ears or the way something is being said. We kind of, you know, you know. So hopefully he does whatever it is positive. But now he kind of gave Get Out to the point where I was excited about, covering it. But again, Get Out, I don't know. The fuck? So weird. You've been in America all this motherfucking time, and now all of a sudden, child, please take your ass on. All right, y'all. Hit like, hit subscribe. Thank you for being here. I'm Unapologetic Tank, and have a